over 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, a blind poet known as Homer, along with the most famous authors, playwrights, and historians of their day, would record the tales known to us as Greek mythology. They would speak of the great heroes of the land, the mighty god of Olympus, and the mortal men and women who were unfortunate enough to get in their way. But who was Zeus, and why did he wage a war against his own father and send a great flood to wipe out humanity? How was mankind created by Prometheus? And why were the horrors of the world unleashed from Pandora's box? What awaited the souls of the dead in the realm of Hades? And how were monsters such as the Hydra, the Cyclops, and Medusa slain by famous heroes from the 12 labors of Hercules to the Trojan War? This is the entire story of Greek mythology. Music, laughter. Music. In the beginning there was only chaos, a great void of emptiness, but from the chaos sprung Gaia, earth, as well as Aos, love. They were then joined by night and day, who had put an end to the reign of Erebus, darkness, with the eternal cycle of dusk and dawn. Emerging lastly would come Tartarus, the deepest depths of the world, where condemned souls would be sent for punishment. But these would not be the only primordial beings to emerge, for Gaia would birth one more Uranus, the sky. The two would then unite and produce 12 children, 6 sons and 6 daughters. These children would be known as the Titans. Among them was Oceanus, a great river that encircled the world. He would be joined by his brother Hyperion, the sun who would ride his great chariot across the sky, shining light down upon the earth. But when day became night, his daughter Selene the moon would emerge, shining her light into the darkness. But Uranus was a cruel father to the Titans, locking his children deep within the earth to escape. They would look to their mother Gaia, who fashioned an indestructible sickle that she gifted to her youngest and strongest son. Cronus would patiently wait. And when Uranus next came to lie with his mother, he would jump out and slice off his father's genitals, which fell into the sea. From them would spawn Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, and the first of a new generation, having defeated his father Uranus. With the sickle, Cronus would take his place as ruler of the world, but his reign was not to last, as Cronus would have 3 sons and 3 daughters, with his sister Rhea, with these children becoming known as the gods. Cronus, however, was just as cruel as his own father, and having recently been informed that one of his children was prophesied to overthrow him, would swallow each of them whole as they were born. Only one would escape this horrible fate, with Zeus, the youngest of his children, being saved by his mother Rhea, not wanting to lose her last child. Rhea would hide Zeus on Mount Ida in Crete and instead feed her husband a rock dressed in infant's clothing, with the Titan consuming it none the wiser. Zeus would be raised by his grandmother Gaia on the island, being hidden away until he reached manhood and was strong enough to challenge his father. When the time came, Zeus would return, striking down Cronus and releasing his siblings from his father's stomach. With his brothers and sisters now at his side, Zeus would wage a war for 10 long years against the Titans, releasing from the depths of the earth the 100-handed giants as well as the Cyclopses. Legendary craftsmen who would forge Zeus a mighty thunderbolt, Poseidon a trident, and Hades a hat of invisibility, turning the tide of the war with the Titans defeated. Zeus would imprison them in Tartarus, deep within the earth, where they would remain in torment for eternity. Having led the Titans in battle, a special punishment would be reserved for Atlas, who was cursed to hold the sky on his shoulders forever. Only a few Titans would escape punishment, with Themis, the Titan of law and order, and her son Prometheus, who had allied with Zeus at the start of the conflict, being pardoned and allowed to live their lives amongst the gods, with the world now free of the Titans' rule. The 3 brothers Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades would decide what realm each would claim, with Zeus receiving the sky, Poseidon the sea, and Hades the underworld, where the spirits of the dead would reside, taking up home on Mount Olympus. Zeus and his fellow gods would become known as the 12 Olympians, ruling over mortals and monsters alike, while the gods now ruled Earth. Prometheus, one of the only Titans spared, was not satisfied with its inhabitants. He saw only beasts, mindless creatures that were barely worthy of attention, and so Prometheus would fashion man from clay, sculpting his new creation in the image of the gods. But Prometheus was not content with his new creation as man dwell in the caves, just like other beasts. And so he gave them fire, a great primordial flame that would allow them to emerge from the cave to fashion tools and rise from the darkness. Man would soon to rule over all other creatures, but Zeus was not happy. He wanted them to show gratitude to the gods, and so demanded that an animal sacrifice be made at each meal, but left it to Prometheus to decide what part of the animal would be offered. But Prometheus's loyalty lay with man rather than the gods. So, wanting to give them an advantage, he would kill a bull and divide it into two parts. Presenting both to Zeus on one side lay the tender and juicy meat hidden under the unappealing stomach of the beast. On the other side lay the bare bones of the animal, concealed by a thick layer of delicious fat. Zeus would choose the parcel covered in fat to be offered to the gods, but when he stripped away the top layer to discover that only bones remained, he would become enraged, and so decided to punish man by taking away the fire. Prometheus had gifted them, but without fire, man went back into darkness, retreating into the cave. Wanting to save his creation, Prometheus would scale Mount Olympus to steal the fire of the gods. With his great torch in hand, he would return to Earth, gifting his creation fire and allowing civilization to start once again. When Zeus looked down to see fire on Earth yet again, he was furious, taking Prometheus and chaining him to the side of a mountain each day. Prometheus would lay in torment as they sent an eagle to feast on his liver. But as Prometheus was immortal, each night the liver would grow back only to be consumed once again the following day. On and on the punishment would go, with his suffering continuing for music millennia. But Zeus was not done and wished to punish humanity further, asking Hephaestus to craft a being capable of inflicting great suffering upon man. And so, taking up clay from the earth, Hephaestus would shape the first woman from Aphrodite. She gained her emotions and beauty, and from Zeus, an insatiable curiosity, Hermes would give her the gift of speech, but also grant her her name, Pandora, meaning all gifts, as she had received an offering from each of the gods. Pandora was then given a final gift by the gods, a sealed box that she was told contained special gifts, but was forbidden from ever opening. Zeus would then instruct Hermes to deliver Pandora to Earth, where she would soon marry the Titan Epimetheus, the brother of Prometheus. Prometheus had advised his brother not to take anything from the gods, but he was so struck by Pandora's beauty that he accepted her without thought. For a time, the two would live happily together, exploring nature and having a daughter named Pir, who brought them great joy. But in all her curiosity, Pandora's mind would always wander back to the box. As days turned to weeks and weeks to months, her curiosity turned into a burning desire. Finally, she could resist no more, peeking into the box to see what was inside. But the moment she did, a great cloud filled the air out, sprung all the evils Prometheus had kept away from man, with greed and envy, as well as old age and disease, all escaping into the world. By the time Pandora managed to close the lid, there was only one thing remaining inside hope. It was to be Zeus's greatest punishment. For with hope, men would cling onto their lives through all adversity, ensuring they endured the hardships that now burdened them for the rest of time. Music, and so ended the golden age of man, a perfect time where humanity lived without care or worry. Never growing old, they would live off the wild fruits of the land, enjoying all that nature had to offer. But with old age escaping from Pandora's box, their time on earth had come to an end. Next would come the age of silver, and then the age of bronze, where man would become arrogant, failing to worship the gods, forging weapons to wage war on each other. Vicious and cruel man would draw the anger of Zeus, who was so appalled by man's lust for war, would decide that humanity deserved nothing more than to be completely wiped from the earth. The only feasible option he saw to do this was to unleash a great flood upon the world, and so he asked his brother Poseidon to gather all his strength and strike his trident upon the deepest depths of the ocean. The wave created was so powerful that it would eclipse the tallest mountains, crashing down upon the cities of man below. Rains would pour from the heavens and winds would strike the water until it consumed all the eye could see. Those who survived would soon succumb to starvation until finally all dry land disappeared. There would only be two survivors: Pyra, the daughter of Pandora, and Jalon, the son of Prometheus. They had been forewarned by Prometheus that a great flood was coming, and so had built a ship to survive the coming destruction. The little boat would survive the ravages of Poseidon's great storm, drifting alone in the vast oceans while they mourned for their fallen kin. They would soon drift towards Mount Parnassus, the peak of which remained the only place the oceans had not consumed, believing his job was done. Zeus would command the rains to cease, and for the waters to recede, with the earth becoming calm once again. But although the earth was now still, it was devoid of all human life. Dualon and Pia would then ask the gods how they could rebuild humanity, with the titan Themis being sent to answer their prayers to bring back their fellow man. Face instructed that they each travel along the mountain, throwing stones behind their backs as they went. Day after day and night after night, they would each throw stones behind them, with those thrown by Dualon growing into men and those by Pia into women. And so it was that humanity was born, once again with the crimes of their ancestors washed away. They were granted a second chance, able to choose a path of their own making. Only time would tell if they would be as brutal and destructive as those who'd preceded them, but this time humanity would be protected for. On Mount Paris, Dualon had found a gift, a tool so secure that but not even the gods of Olympus could breach it, something that would keep humanity safe for the rest of time. Nord's ultimate security package. You too can reclaim control over your digital privacy and gain access to malware protection that warns you about unsafe sites and scans and deletes any files that could harm your device. A data breach scanner to check if your passwords, email address, or credit card details have been leaked. An ad blocker that prevents all those annoying pop-up ads and banners, allowing for a smoother online experience. A privacy tool that stops third-party websites and online spies from tracking your activity. A cross-platform password manager that can back up any passwords you choose in an encrypted vault. A dark web monitor that scans the dark web for your personal information, helping protect you against account lockouts and identity theft. 24/7 customer support, and to top it all off, access to the fastest VPN on the market. Their VPN will allow you to browse securely while traveling or using public Wi-Fi access, geo-restricted content from the likes of YouTube and Netflix, and bypass internet censorship, all while keeping your data private and secure. What's even better is that you don't even need to have the VPN turned on for all of their features to work. Simply click on the threat protection option, toggle on the features you want, and let them run in the background, keeping your device protected and secure. If you have any device connected to the internet, you need NordVPN's ultimate security package. Protect yourself online. Click the link in the description or pinned comment and go to nordvpn.com. The live guide once there. Make sure you click grab deal. This will give you access to the best prices available. What's even better is that if you select their 2-year plan, you can get everything we just mentioned for just £3 a month. It helps support the channel and is completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. Music. Zeus, the king of the gods, ruled from his throne on Mount Olympus, with his symbols of the thunderbolt and eagle becoming omens to humanity. Zeus was responsible for all weather changes, from thunderstorms to raging blizzards. Depending on his mood, the Greeks considered Zeus the greatest of the gods, with those who bowed before him receiving good fortune and those who dared to defy him subjected to terrible punishment. Having now taken control of the world, Zeus would look for a wife to rule by his side, but the king of the gods was famous for his infidelity with him, having no less than 7 wives during his reign. The first to marry Zeus would be the nymph Metis, the goddess of wisdom, with her soon falling pregnant with his child. But Zeus had been warned by his grandparents Gaia and Uranus that Metis was destined to bear him a treacherous son who would one day take his throne. Seeing no other choice, Zeus would swallow Metis before she gave birth in the hopes of avoiding the prophecy. But after he did so, Zeus would begin to suffer a terrible headache, with the pain becoming so intense that he would ask for his head to be split open with an axe from the gap in his forehead. Would spring the child Metis had been carrying inside her, a daughter named Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, fully grown and ready to take her place as one of the Olympians. Zeus's second wife would be his aunt Themis, the titan of justice and law who had betrayed her own kind to side with the gods during their war with the Titans. The pair would only have 3 children together. However, they would come to garner great power over the mortal world known as the 3 Fates. These sisters would become the goddesses of destiny, spinning a thread of life that would determine the road each individual soul would take. The youngest sister would be known as Clotho the Spinner, as she was responsible for spinning the thread of each human life as they were born. Controlling if and when a soul was created, it was only through Clotho's great power that a new life would come to be her older sister Lausus. The Iota would determine the fate of each person. Using her rod, Lacasis would measure the length and nature of every thread spun upon Clotho's spindle, and in doing so would plot out the duration as well as every major event of each human life. And finally, the eldest and most feared sister would be known as Atropos the Unur. When immortals' allotted time on earth had come to an end, Atropos would take her great shears and end their life by cutting through the thread. Zeus would go on to have many more wives, fathering numerous gods and goddesses alike. But for his 7th and final wife, he would take his older sister Hera, the goddess of women and marriage, with Zeus, having finally found a queen to rule by his music side. But even after his marriage to Hera, Zeus's lustful eye would extend beyond the heavens, with the king of the gods continuing to pursue other women, fathering countless children. Zeus would be related to nearly every god and hero with him, often disguising himself to gain the affection of women who drew his eye. One such woman, Europa, was the princess of the city Ti and sister to the famous hero Cadmus. One day, as she was picking flowers by the coast, Europa would draw the attention of Zeus, with the king of the gods deciding to claim her as his own to hide his infidelity from Hera. Zeus decided to transform himself into a magnificent white ball before traveling down to earth. Upon seeing the ball, Europa would be mesmerized by its beauty, and so decided to climb upon its back the moment she mounted him. However, Zeus would set out at full speed, sprinting straight into the sea, screaming in terror. Europa would grip desperately to the ball's horns as it ran across the vast ocean. To reassure the terrified princess, Zeus would decide to reveal his true identity, telling her he was not merely a beast, but instead the king of the gods. The two would eventually arrive at Crete, the island on which Zeus was hidden as a child, where she would bear him many children. Their offspring would eventually become some of the most renowned men of Greece, with Minos, the king of Crete and owner of the legendary Minor, being amongst them. To commemorate his love for Europa, Zeus would name the continent where they stood Europe in her honor, and would recreate the image of the white bull in the stars, which would become known as the constellation Taurus. Hera, wife of Zeus and queen of the gods, was the protector of marriage and women, being deeply respected in Greek society. Although she was revered, she was also one of the most vengeful and spiteful gods on Mount Olympus, making her a poor match for her husband Zeus, whose numerous affairs would constantly draw her anger. Despite being his queen, Hera would only bear him 2 of the 12, Olympians Ares and Hephaestus, with the other gods coming from Zeus's numerous affairs. One of Zeus's most insulting acts of infidelity would be with the princess Io, one of Hera's most devoted priestesses. When Hera came to investigate in an attempt to protect Io from his wife, Zeus would transform her into a beautiful white cow. But the queen of the gods was not fooled by the deception, and knowing that she had caught Zeus red-handed, would demand that he gift her the white cow as a present, knowing that refusing the request would only confirm Hero's suspicions. Zeus saw little choice but to accept, with Hera locking Io in a cave where she would be guarded by the 100-eyed monster known as Argus. The perfect guardsman, Argus could sit with half his eyes asleep and the other half awake, never breaking his watch. Zeus was too terrified of Hera to intervene himself, but he would eventually send the messenger god Hermes to free the miserable Io, a master musician. Hermes decided to defeat Argus not through strength but through wit, approaching the monster as a friend. He began playing his pipes and singing sweet lullabies until Argus began to fall asleep as the 800th eye finally shut. Hermes would take out his sword and slay the beast before releasing Io from her prison to thank Argus for his service. Hero would take his eyes and set them in the tail of the peacock, her favorite bird, which would become a symbol of her power not yet finished with Io. She would send a gadfly to torment her as she made her escape, almost driving the woman insane. Io wandered long and far with the sea, which she run along, being named the Ionian Sea. In her honor, the Bosporus, which means ford of the cow, would also be named to commemorate the moment she passed by during her wanderings. Io would eventually arrive at the Nile in Egypt, far away from Hera, where Zeus would finally be able to restore her human form. The two would have a child, Epeus, with Io becoming the ancestor to many of Greece's greatest heroes, including Perseus and Heracles Leto, yet another of Zeus's lovers. And the mother of Apollo and Artemis would experience the full extent of Hera's jealous rage after finding out Leto had laid with Zeus and fallen pregnant with twins. Hera would send the great serpent Python to torment her, forcing Leto to flee across Greece in a desperate search to find refuge and a place to give birth to her children, but Hera would forbid any city from providing her with shelter, with Leto traveling from Athens to Crete, from Lemnos to Snos, with none willing to take her in for the fear of upsetting the queen of the gods. Only the island of Delos was willing to offer Leto refuge, but she was still unable to deliver her children, as Hera, still scheming against her, had trapped Althea, the goddess of childbirth, on Mount Olympus, preventing any births from taking place. After 9 days and nights of agonizing labor, the other goddesses would take pity on Leto, retrieving Althea from Olympus, and finally allowing her to give birth. Leto would name one child Apollo and the other Artemis, the god of archery and the goddess of the hunt, who would grow up to become fully fledged gods of Olympus upon the birth of the twins. Towns and cities across the known world would arrange great parties in their honor, with the city of Thebes hosting the greatest celebrations of all yet. Of all the city's inhabitants, only one would not take part in the festivities: Queen Niobe, whose beauty was matched only by her arrogance, boasting to all who would listen. Niobe mocked Leto for having just 2 children, arguing that as she had many more, 7 sons and 7 daughters, she should receive the honors instead. Upon hearing the insult, Leto was furious that a mortal queen would dare to disrespect her, and so sent Apollo and Emus to the city of Thebes to enact her revenge, raining down arrows from above. Apollo would kill each of her sons, and Artemis, every daughter, with Niobe left alone in despair, distraught at the loss of her children. Niobe would flee to her homeland of Cus, crying uncontrollably and begging the gods to put an end to her pain. Taking pity on the queen, Zeus would transform her into a great stone, forever ending her suffering, located in western Turkey and known as the Weeping Rock. Niobe can still be seen grieving to this day, with tears flooding from her eyes whenever it rains, as the water flows through the porous rock. Apollo, the youngest twin, was the god of archery, light, and music. He was also closely linked with prophecy, with him traveling to Mount Parnassus with a great snake python which had chased his mother across the land, had made its home taking his revenge. He would slay the beast with countless shots from his golden bow, constructing a great temple where its body fell a site that would become the home of the famous Oracle of Delhi, known as the Pythia. The oracle would become one of the most influential figures in ancient Greece, where anyone from great kings to common farmers went for advice, said to be the mouthpiece of Apollo. She would inhale the vapors rising from her chamber and go into a frenzied state, delivering the god's prophecies through her psychotic and demented music, chanting following his great victory over Python, a beast he had killed with over 1,000 arrows. Apollo was filled with pride, declaring himself that the greatest archer to have ever lived. So proud was Apollo that when he saw Eos, the youthful god of love, holding his own bow and set of arrows, Apollo would laugh at the child, declaring that he was unfit to even wield such a weapon. Filled with rage, Eos would swear avenge against Apollo, promising to show him the full extent and true power of his bow. Following Apollo to the river Penis, Eos would soon spot the river's daughter, the beautiful Daphne, sitting upon the shore taking aim with his bow. Eos would fire a gold-tipped arrow at Apollo, causing him to fall madly in love with her. Yet he would fire a second arrow at Daphne, one tipped with lead, that would make her feel nothing but disgust at the sight of Apollo. And so, as the god of archery approached Daphne, overcome with desire, she would flee into the very sight of him running through the forest in a desperate attempt to escape, consumed by Eros' spell and longing to confess his love. Apollo would chase her through the woods, using his divine powers to quickly catch up and reach her. Terrified of the god, Daphne would cry out to her father, the river god Penis, for help. He would answer her call with her, soon beginning to feel a great heaviness overcome her limbs, slowing to a halt. Her skin would turn to bark and her hair to leaves until finally Daphne's transformation was complete. Where a young and beautiful woman had once stood was now the first laurel tree, with Apollo using his powers of eternal youth and immortality to make the laurel tree's leaves evergreen, ensuring they kept their color all year round. Mourning his lost love, Apollo would carry a laurel wreath wherever he went, making sure that Daphne was always close to his heart. Music. Apollo's most important child would be Zeus, a famous physician who was so skilled that he was able to bring the dead back to life. But this would draw the wrath of Hades, as these resurrections destroyed the balance of nature and deprived the underworld of new souls. To restore the natural order, Zeus would kill Zeus with a thunderbolt. Yet at the pleading of Apollo, Zeus would later resurrect him, with Asclepius becoming the god of healing and medicine. Asclepius would later father Hea, the goddess of cleanliness, from whom we derive the word hygiene. Goddess of the hunt and twin sister of Apollo, Artemis was a deadly archer, watching over hunters and ensuring that nature was kept in check. A goddess of the moon and one of the three virgin goddesses alongside Athena and Hestia, Artemis was quick to anger, protecting her chastity by any means possible. When the hunter Acon, a grandson of Cadmos, accidentally stumbled upon her as she lay bathing in the forest, the goddess was quick to punish him. Turning action into a deer, she would set his 50 hunting dogs upon him, with the hunter suffering a horrific and painful death for his mistake. Poseidon, brother of Zeus, ruled the seas. From his magnificent palace beneath the waves, known as the Earth Shaker, Poseidon would create all earthquakes, traveling across the oceans in his golden chariot, with him stirring and calming the waters with his famous trident. One of his harshest punishments would be inflicted upon Minos, the king of Crete, after Minos refused to sacrifice his best bull to Poseidon. The god would curse Minos' wife to fall in love with the beast, which eventually led to the birth of the half-man, half-bull creature known as the Minotaur. But while he usually kept to his own domain in the seas, Poseidon would grow tired of Zeus's rule on Olympus, alongside Athena, Hera, and Apollo. Poseidon would attempt to dethrone Zeus, but the rebellion would ultimately fail. Zeus would punish Poseidon and Apollo by sending them to serve King Ladon of Troy, where they would spend an entire year building the city's giant and famous walls that would later have to withstand the force of Greece's mightiest armies during the Trojan War. Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom and the child of Zeus and Metis, was known for her love of strategists and cunning heroes, helping many of them on their great quests. But she was also a proud goddess, and to stake her claim on the world, she decided to compete for patronage of a great city in eastern Greece, which was yet to be named, competing against her uncle Poseidon. The two would attempt to give the city the best gift. Poseidon would strike the ground with his trident, making a stream of water rise up for all to see. But as the water was salty, it could not be used to tend the land, with the city's inhabitants unimpressed. But Athena, wanting to gift the city something they had never seen before, would place the palm of her hand on the earth with the first olive tree emerging. Not only would it feed the people of the land, but it would also have many uses with the oil. It produced used in cooking medicine, perfume, candles, and athletics, bringing numerous benefits to the ancient world. With Pride hanging his head in shame, the gods would deem Athena victorious, with the city taking her name and becoming known as Athens, the capital of Greece, and one of the most important cities of its era, the inventor of mathematics. Athena also had a fondness for music, inventing the trumpet and the flute, as well as being the patron of artists and craftsmen. She was particularly proud of her skill in weaving, although this would bring her into conflict with a young girl from Libya named Arachne. Highly skilled in the craft, Arachne would boast she was the greatest weaver to ever live, challenging Athena to a competition. They would each produce a tapestry of the gods, with the person that demonstrated the most skill being crowned of victorious. The two would weave furiously for hours until finally both pieces were complete. But to Athena's surprise, Arachne was far better than her own. Furious, she strunk Arachne on the head again and again until she dropped to the floor. But rather than kill her, Athena transformed the girl into the first spider, where she would use her talents to weave beautiful webs with the creatures known as arachnids taking her name. If you, unlike Arachne, want to avoid Athena's wrath, make sure you subscribe. And if you're feeling very generous, we've just launched a new feature called Super Thanks, where you can help support the channel and get your message highlighted for us and others to see. Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty, was born from the genitals of Uranus, making her the oldest of the Olympians. A mischievous god, she would